The AMD Radeon RX 550 is a budget graphics card released in 2017. This OEM branded one is special as it's a half-height or low-profile form factor variant. Not only does it make it cute, but also a versatile card. It comes with a full-size bracket for an everyday PC or a half-height bracket to fit in those slim office PCs. That is exactly where this one is going, into this Opltiplex 760 small form factor PC, which has an 8th gen i5 and 24GB of RAM. A bit unusual, but I wanted dual channel memory and only had a 16GB to add to the existing 8GB. With the GPU installed, it may make this office PC into a low-end gaming PC. Installing is easy. Pop off the side panel, lift up the PCI Express hinge and slot it into the lower full X16 PCI Express slot. Now I could fit it into the upper X4 slot, which would give it more breathing space. However, this would result in less bandwidth to the GPU, and I also found it was power limited to 25 watts instead of 35 with the X16 bus. Temperatures don't seem to be an issue, so the X16 slot is the best way to get the most performance. Let's start with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I've featured this game in all my videos so far, so may as well go with that again. To get an about 30 FPS experience, you have two options, 900p lowest preset or 720p low preset. The lowest preset certainly looks much worse than low, but then when you switch to 720p low, you realize how much clearer 900p is compared to 720p. So pick your poison, 720p low or 900p lowest. If I had to choose, I'd probably go 720p, as the lowest graphics preset makes it feel almost like a different game. Next up, Doom Eternal, 720p low preset, and it gets around 40 FPS. Certainly not an ideal way to play, but I think it's pretty good it actually runs. I did try higher resolutions. At 1080p it was less than 30, but I also found that it was running slower, and not just lower frame rates, but the entire game was slowed down, as if we were running through jelly, or jello for you North Americans. Even at 900p it would still experience these slowdowns, just not as often or as pronounced. Now we have Deathloop. I was half expecting this to not work at all, but here we are. On everything set to the lowest, 720p and performance FSR, we get about 30 FPS. Now, it's getting hard to make out distance objects, and it certainly dips a lot, especially when the action kicks in, but honestly, I'm surprised it runs at all. Playable might be a stretch, but I used to play Skyrim at 20 FPS, so maybe younger me might have thought this isn't too bad. Okay, we'll dial back to more sensible games for the hardware. Dark Souls 3 at 720p low preset just doesn't reach that 60 FPS mark, and it can actually dip quite a bit to the mid 40s. There was a stutter at one part which brought down the 0.1% low score, but otherwise playable. Not ideal. I think it will dip during intense boss fights, but passable I think. So where does this card actually shine? Well, esports titles like CSGO on low settings offer a good experience for those running a 1080p 60Hz monitor. I've been told that setting everything to low is the correct way to play, so this should be considered a decent CSGO experience. Older AAA titles like BioShock Infinite falls just shy of 60 FPS at 1080p medium, but it is a solid gaming experience overall. I didn't test, but I think dropping or tweaking the game settings a bit will get you that solid 60 if that's more important than visual fidelity to you. The game is about a decade old, so keep that in mind at what kind of AAA games you can expect this kind of experience with. And lastly, we have a favourite of mine, A Hat in Time, an indie game that I would recommend to all 3D platforming fans. On the performance preset, it will run a bit over 50 FPS at 1080p, but will dip to the mid 40s. Despite that, this is the way I'd play. But if you prefer consistent 60 FPS, the Ultra Performance preset will be for you, but the image quality will take a hit, most notably with the shadows. So that's been a look at the OEM low profile RX 550 2GB graphics card. It did surprisingly well in some of the newer games, though I would not recommend it for games like that. It does best in older AAAs, esports titles, and easier to run indie games. It will be interesting to compare this against a full-sized RX 550 and even more so against the 4GB variant. Tech Power Up says the card can draw up to 50 watts, while I only got 35 watts with this one. Not sure if the 50 watts is a max draw that is rarely reached, or maybe the GPU is power limited due to its smaller size. It could also be the Opltiplex PC limiting power, It was certainly happening with the X4 slot. If you have one and have played any of these games, let me know if yours performs better. And that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. I hope this was interesting. If you like this one, I have a few other tech videos on my channel and plans for more to come in the future.